Good evening, America. This is Sergeant Dave Matthews at gmail.com at the Remember the Fallen podcast on klrnradio.net, in which every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be voicing for our veterans into infinity. I'm back with vengeance after the survival instincts of an 8-ton rollover accident in the Parwan province of Afghanistan in 2004, where I lost my 9-year-old gunner, Brandon J. Wadman, who was sitting right next to me. Please Google his name to read the whole story. I emerged from a pile of hurt soldiers on Old Kabul Road and returned to the States with even a more enduring tale of perseverance. As I navigate through the riddled and troubled rapids of the VA system, I gain a new perspective that I will share with you with a fever of enthusiasm to all patriots across the windswept fields of America. You see, one of us can be run off, two of us can be disregarded, but a podcast audience, we are a movement. All right, this is Sergeant Dave in the Remember the Fallen Revitalizing Live studio in beautiful Seminole County, Florida, USA, on the Winter Springs Oviedo line. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm playing Jefferson's Starship Airplane, White Rabbit. Well, we're doing a special episode from the DAV magazine called This Is Your Brain on Drugs. And then drugs is slashed out, drug-assisted psychotherapy. So it tells you more about the MDMA shows promise healing mental trauma in FDA-approved clinical trials. So it is a PTSD breakthrough. And right now, I'm going to have my intern co-host, Mark Dayton. Okay, Mark, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Well, I was a missile maintenance and space systems technician in the United States Air Force. And as of now, I'm currently very active in the veteran community, especially in the Orlando, Florida area. I do stuff with the Orlando VA as well as several other veterans groups. And my main goal, and part of why I'm on the show today, is just to try to help our brothers and sisters have a better life through healthier living.
Hey, as a matter of fact, that's how we met, right?
Yeah, that is
we
how
met at the VA.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
Yep.
And then we went to that rally.
Yep.
We went to the Operation Open Florida rally downtown Orlando.
Yeah, that was great.
That was interesting stuff, huh?
Yeah, it was funny. I expected more veterans to come out to that, but we had a good turnout. But I was pleased to see that it wasn't just the veterans out there doing it. It was just your average business owners and private citizens out there doing it. So it means that the American people are awake and they see what's really going on.
So, Mark, earlier you mentioned that you affiliated with the Veterans Affairs, VA, we'll call it, and you communicate with a lot of veterans. So you must run across PTSD. So can you share with me maybe some of the conversations you might have had, or just something about, enlighten us more about PTSD and this new breakthrough?
Yeah, I find I get the most out of other veterans that are suffering from it, actually talking outside the VA, and an environment away from the military and away from the VA where they can speak freely and they don't feel like they're hung up by things. And it basically, for those who don't know, post-traumatic stress disorder is what PTSD for. That's what it stands for. Basically, there's traumatic events that happen in life that can cause this to happen, such as things that happen in combat. And there's even a lot of veterans out there, such as people who's experienced military sexual trauma and other traumatic events that can cause PTSD to occur. So I've met a lot of veterans of varying different causes for their PTSD. But a lot of the results are the same and require the same treatment.
Okay, so this article talks about, ecstasy, and you remember ecstasy, the rave back in the days.
Yeah, and Molly. And
yeah, we were in the 80s. It was going.
90s.
It was rampant. Was it 90s?
Yeah, it was 90s.
Okay.
Your age is showing.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I left Boston then, because I didn't run into that down here in Florida at all. Okay. More about this article about the breakthrough status and its fast-tracking final phases in clinical trials in the hopes of developing a new countermeasure, PTSD.
I'd say for the most part that's correct based on my experience with seeing the effects of different alternative treatments, and I'm a big believer in that. So the veterans I've talked to that have gotten involved with experimental treatments have had a lot more success in dealing with issues like PTSD or TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, and things such as that. The nightmares have been cut down significantly. All the other symptoms, the host of them, because there's a lot of them, varying in severity, have also gone down quite a bit. as a result of alternative treatment. So psychotherapy alone is good, but it's not at the end-all, be-all. You need to incorporate other things in with it.
This article talks about Jonathan Lubecki, and you were telling me earlier, you keyed on this article where he... go ahead, take it over. You said he got blown up. Tell me about that.
Yeah, talk about a really crappy place to get blown up. The poor guy, I know, the poor guy was sitting in a porta potty over there in Iraq, and a mortar round came in and hit the porta potty the guy was in. And if he had stood up, he said he would have gotten shrapnel hit him, but instead he stayed seated and he came out of it without a scratch, or so they thought. But the truth of the matter is he didn't come out of there without a scratch. He had PTSD and later found out he also had traumatic brain injury. So now he's got both of those. One of them's bad enough, but when you have two, that's like a synergistic effect, and you got a real problem after that.
Okay, so what you're saying is two of them at the same time, would you have different coupling medicine, different healing mental aspects because there's two of them? Would you double up on the medicine? Tell me how you would handle it. Not that you're a doctor, but what do you hear out there?
Well, as part of my work, I'm a veterans advocate, and I do some mentoring as well. So I deal with veterans that have issues just like this, and I get feedback from them on what's working and what's not working. And I also interact a lot with mental health folks at the VA as well as private practice that also work with veterans. And one of the common themes is that they really need to explore the whole alternative medicine route because they seem to be having the best success with that. Now, I know that the study here that's talking about MDMA, I'm a little leery of that based on what I saw people doing in the 90s.
Yeah.
They were doing some crazy stuff. Based on my opinion, from what the veterans I've spoken to and the mental health professionals that I've spoken to, if they're going to use an alternative substance, I see the most promise coming from cannabinoids, marijuana, derivatives of it, especially with CBD oil or CBD oil combined with THC, because it has a synergistic effect. I know it's a big word. I have a hard time pronouncing it. I was enlisted. I wasn't an officer. That explains it. But anyway, the two of those together they found in studies that those two combined have helped veterans sleep better, so it's improved their sleeping. When they wake up more refreshed. They're ready for the day. I mean, they still drink coffee and have stimulants and stuff and be like normal adults, but it just really puts them in a better mood and levels them out. It's like what I call like trimming the trees, like doing the edging in your property and the bushes, and makes their life much more fulfilling and even-keeled.
So basically, it depends on the individual as well, right? Because you got maybe the type of trauma he had, the level of trauma, the individual's personality, even his demographics. Is he married? Does he have kids? But this story is very promising for Jeff Lubecki. What they're saying is he's recovered. Can you tell me more about that story with Lubecki?
Well, yeah. Basically, he had what I come to find were very typical symptoms, with the nightmares. One scenario is, you wake up in the middle of the night and your heart just feels like it's going to beat out of your chest. You're sweating. Sometimes you wake up in a cold sweat. Your mind's racing and spooling out of control, and you feel like you're mentally going to just snap. You're going to pop, and that's where the self-medicating comes in. So he was self-medicating with alcohol and then got into drugs as well. And then you got to worry about bad effects from drug interaction with the stuff the VA's giving you. And the VA, in all fairness, really hasn't done a good job in educating veterans on the interaction between what they're giving us and what we're taking on the side.
Like the box of wine, the box of stupid.
Oh, gosh, like the Franzia. I call that box of stupid.
Right.
Open a tap and, open tap and go right to stupid.
Right. That was too easy to self-medicate back then, all right? I was self-medicating right after I got out of my accident in 2005, 2007, and then I got help with military organizations. I basically started weaning myself off the alcohol, and then I got involved with peer supports. I helped build Vietnam Veterans America. So I just suggest, just get out there, guys, and do stuff like that and get it going. But this article is more promising because it talks about CAPS. Can you fill us in about CAPS, what that really means?
Yeah, we're going to be throwing a lot of acronyms out here. CAPS is an acronym. CAPS stands for Clinician Administered PTSD Scale. Basically what that is that's a scale that mental health professionals use to rate your level of PTSD or TBI or whatever other mental issue you've got going on. And just because you have PTSD or TBI or any of these other things, there's a lot of stigma attached to them that is not fair. If you have these things, do not beat yourself up and don't look down on other people if they have it as well. Because it doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you're incompetent or anything like that. You can still work a job. You can still function almost completely normal like a normal human being. You're just carrying around a lot of baggage that needs to be dealt with more effectively. And that's where the therapy comes.
Well, it says here the VA acknowledges that psychotherapy is the best. Got that a little bit because one of we think our therapies is playing golf, right?
Right. Well, yeah. That's an important part you bring up there. I don't think that psychotherapy alone is enough. Like I said, there's alternative medicine is, for some of the issues that I have as a disabled veteran, I found that alternative medicine has done a lot more for me when it's combined with traditional Western medicine, as well as healthy lifestyle. For instance, healthy coping mechanisms, whether it's going out and kayaking or surfing or jet skiing with your friends or fishing or barbecuing. One of the things I really like to do, is probably my biggest passion in life, is I'm a certifiable golf junkie. So I'm a member of an organization called Fairways for Warriors. And basically, originally it was intended to be for combat wounded veterans, but now there's veterans they're finding with PTSD and other issues that are really high in a disability rating, all the way up to 100%, that really can benefit from it as well. So more and more other veterans are getting involved in those things. And the great neat thing about Fairways as an example is Fairways for Warriors has golf outings where a veteran shows up. They can provide clubs often and golfing shoes for the veteran. They'll provide a meal and drinks. They'll have bottled water and everything, and you eat and you get to socialize with other veterans, and you go out and you're socializing and getting talking to other veterans as you're playing, and that's a form of therapy. But when you get up there to swing that golf club and you hit that ball, you focus on that shot and that ball, and that's all you're focused on. So what it's also teaching you to do is it's develop a switch in your mind to turn the PTSD or whatever else it is you're suffering from off and on. It could be traumatic. It could be pain. Right. It could be a number of things.
Right. So that makes sense. So in other words, if you're able to turn that off to hit a golf ball,
yeah.
So if you're able, in other words, you're going on an event with your wife, and let's say you're going to a wedding,
yeah.
So you're able to turn that PTSD off when you're at the wedding. You can kind of direct the same mentality as hitting that golf ball and just turning it off at certain events of time. Now you hope you can turn it off that long, over an hour or 2 hours, but I can see how that can come across the lateral, let's just say lateral way to receive this is to turn it off at a time when you need to focus on what's at hand, especially with your family. So we notice that a lot of soldiers are having difficult times with their families. They can't even talk to their family members. They can't talk to civilians, and especially their co-workers. So this is a great opportunity for them to focus on the same concept of hitting that golf ball, choosing the right club, the strategy. You take that strategy of golf and use it in their personal life.
Well, two things I'd like to point out that are real important that you touched on there that I think are, like I said, very important, is one, you're not the same person when you come back that you were when you left. And your family and friends and the people that were in your life beforehand, they have to find a way to deal with that and deal with you because you've changed, often not for the better. And also, too, you need to be aware of the fact, that's where self-awareness comes in, that they're looking at you going, what in the world happened to this person? And it's not just men, it's women, too. And it's not just combat wounds. It could be military sexual trauma. It could be a whole host of things, bad accidents. A lot of things happen to veterans, sometimes even in peacetime, that cause PTSD, where they weren't actually in a combat zone, but they went through something really traumatic and it caused it. And it seems to affect men and women equally. So these are some important things to point out.
Hey, Mark, I really like this outdoor thing, especially with COVID-19. So can you share with the audience some of your personal experiences where golf has changed you in a bit for the better?
I practice something since we're throwing out acronyms, I created my own little acronym, and I call it ATR. It stands for Alternative Thinking Routine. Okay, that's my own an acronym that I use for myself. Basically what it is I take what I've learned from playing golf, and I noticed I was able to do this shortly after starting golf as a therapy tool, And it just, the more I do it, the stronger it gets. And now I've been doing it for years, so it's a very powerful tool for me now because I've practiced it and done it a lot. With repetition comes strength and ability. But anyway, the bottom line is that I can, when I'm getting into that zone where I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or I'm feeling like I'm backed into the corner, and I think a lot of us veterans have felt that way, regardless of whether we have PTSD or not. And then you start to short circuit and you're not handling the situation right. If you can just put that down temporarily and do what I call the alternative thinking routine, where now I'm starting to think, I've actually thought about me out playing a golf course that I really like, and think about, in my mind, visualizing walking away from all the other guys, all the other men and women that I'm playing golf with, the other veterans, and focusing on the ball. And I'm looking at the ball in my mind's eye, and I'm focusing on that and focusing on the swing. And like I'm teeing off on the 9th fairway or something of a golf course that I remember. And I'm visual cues and everything from my memory. I'm going through the whole thing, and I'm focused on that. And I'm also doing breathing exercises while I'm doing it. And that, I do that for a little bit, and that gets me out of that zone and breaks up my routine. So then when I come back to the stressful situation, I find it's easier to cope with because it gave me the break I needed to re-enter and then maybe come back at it from a different angle, whatever that situation was.
Oh, well, the problem I have is, Mark, my memory is the 19th hole, okay? So
all right.
what do you do when you're playing golf and you know, your golf partners, they basically drinking the whole way. The golf cart's coming up, the girl comes around with the drinks and stuff.
The beer cart girl.
Yeah, the beer cart girl. I mean, how do you handle that? Because that must have happened to you. I mean, what's the best? Can you give some advice on that one?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say the 19th hole. You know, I distinctly remember a fairly recent president that thought we had 57 states.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. The thing with a beer cart is when you see the beer cart girl coming, that's trouble on wheels. You don't want anything to do with that. Because when you start drinking, that screws up the game. And for a lot of us that have used alcohol unhealthy, like I have, as a coping mechanism, it just causes more problems than it helps. Now, some people use funny terminology. They call it swing lube. They call alcohol and drugs swing lube. It makes you a better golfer. I played with people that started drinking, and I was stone cold sober, and it did not make them a better golfer. I hate to burst your bubble out there, but they actually played worse. But just that they were alternative reality, and they didn't realize how bad they looked out there. Plus, they were doing stupid and saying stupid stuff.
As we're talking about alcohol, you sound like you were onto something, Mark, about alcohol while you're playing golf. Can you underscore that right now and tell us a little bit more?
Sure. Well, I can speak from personal experience about that. Alcohol is not a healthy coping mechanism at the end of the day. In fact, I don't even drink anymore, and I find my life is so much better without it that I don't miss it. I really, really don't. And I'm glad it's like the weight of the world off my shoulders. I find I deal with things better. When you introduce alcohol, it alters your state of mind, right? Because it's a intoxicant. So it makes you, same thing as doing drugs, you know. It alters your state of mind, and it alters your behavior and your thought patterns and everything. It turns you into kind of a different person. Mm-hmm. And now, I've heard people say, oh man, a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. Well, is that really true? Or is it really what happens is sometimes that's true, but in a lot of cases it's not, because you're not really being truly honest about who you are, what you are, and how you feel with yourself or the people around you. Especially like if you're out on a date or at a social function. Well, when you start drinking alcohol, whether you're out on a date or at any other social function, it alters your state of mind, your state of consciousness. So if it's doing that, it's also altering the way you are, your behavior, your thought patterns, everything. So one way to look at it is, are you truly being honest with yourself and the people around you, with who you are, what you are, and how you feel? Or are you being deceptive with yourself and with other people? You're trying to avoid dealing with an issue. Now, and also too, alcohol can magnify emotions and magnify traumatic events. So where you may be tripping up and getting stuck on stupid, thinking about something that was traumatic that's hurting you, alcohol can make it that much worse, and you can end up doing more damage in the long run, or even the short and long run, by consuming alcohol or various other substances. That's why a lot of these tests that were done with mind-altering substances were done in a very controlled environment with specific purpose, and it was regimented. But just free-nilly out there, freestyling is not the way to go with those things.
So what now, Mark? We're staring in the face of COVID-19. What do you expect for these guys to do now?
Well, for starters, I call COVID-19 the CCP virus, Communist Chinese Party virus, because that's where it came from and everybody knows it. Second of all, Okay, that's really made it difficult because the golf course has been closed, and it's really limited our options in terms of exercises, sporting events, and things that we would normally do. I practice mindfulness, so I do meditation, yoga, tai chi. I can do exercise at home that I can do on my own. I also do, when the mindfulness comes in, I do breathing exercises, and I think about things like I use the golf thing where I visualize things in my head that are peaceful or things I enjoy that take my mind off of something traumatic or stressful that I was dealing with. And it works for me because I've practiced it. And I remember, you and I have been out there with our masks on, which is kind of awkward, basically turning your backyard into a driving range, hitting golf balls around, and then chasing after golf balls in the backyard, trying not to hit each other. Although I think you were trying to hit me on a couple of occasions.
You lost 4 balls, man. I counted, man.
No.
You owe me 4, man.
Oh, what about 4? The time? Yeah, right. What about the times you almost hit me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you didn't even offer me workman's comp on that, man. Yeah. What's the deal?
All right, Mark, that pretty much wraps up the show. I want to thank you for coming by, and, can't wait to see the next show we're going to do.
Okay, sounds great. Be glad to do it.
Stick around another minute while I take care of our sponsor, Symmetry Financial Group. After all, we fought for freedom, so isn't it time you broke the chains of debt?
We have an epidemic in this country. It's called debt. As consumers, we all have debt, whether it's school loans, car loans, credit cards, or your biggest debt of all, your mortgage. And as veterans, you deserve to put yourself and your family in a better place financially. Between the interest rates, the fees, taxes, and other charges that we all incur, we're just sheeple in the same old rat race. So if I asked each one of you, are you 100% sure you're going to have a great retirement, or do you have some doubt? Or what if I said, if I could show you how to get out of debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage, without spending any additional money, would you be interested in knowing more about that? Well, I can. I can do just that. And guess what? It's all tax-free, and it has a death.
All right, it's getting 0:30 for the show, and before I relax, never, and go into rack ops mode, go to sergeantdavematthews@gmail.com for suggestions for the next podcast content. And you can always get a hold of me on my Twitter handle, @Heroic Memorials. And if you like my Facebook page, go ahead and like that page. Remember the fallen, all one word. All right? Remember the fallen. And if you're drowning in debt, let the Symmetry Financial Group throw you a lifeline. And remember now, it's veterans helping veterans. Let a veteran that took the oath help you win the battle of debt. Email me at dmatthews.sfg@gmail.com. Once again, that's dmatthews.sierrafoxtrotgolf@gmail.com. All right. Until all our troops come back safe from Afghanistan, I will see you again tomorrow night, 9 o'clock again, for the spin-off show, Revitalizing Lives. Now, if you can go to the show, remember, it's always 18th, 17th to the right at klrnradio.net. And if you want a debt-free life like me, you can text me at 321-356-6559. All right, Pub Smoke out.